Welcome to the Brave Feminine Leadership interview series, where I get to interview all sorts of fascinating global leaders and we get to dip into their wisdom and perspective on all things life and leadership. And today I am absolutely thrilled to be joined by Florence Potter. Flo, welcome to the conversation.
Thanks, Melissa. It's great to be here.
So let me share with our audience who you are. So Florence Potter's the founding director of No Umbrellas, a Sydney, Australian-based organisation helping teams bridge generational divides and rethink collaboration. With experience across not-for-profits, Big Four consulting and creative industries, Flo's a leading facilitator, speaker and generational strategist. Her workshops are grounded in data and research. They're designed to challenge outdated stereotypes around communication, motivation, and leadership. And the outcomes lead to more productive, collaborative, and effective teams. Flo, I just love, and I know the meaning, but I love the name of your company. Can you share why No Umbrellas?
Yeah, absolutely. It does start a lot of fun conversations. I think a lot of people think I sell raincoats, but yeah. So it's basically the idea of No Umbrellas is founded on bringing people together to share ideas, discuss research and ideas. The tagline is when it's raining ideas, wipe up an umbrella. Or as Ted Lasso, a bit of a favorite of mine, said, you shouldn't bring an umbrella to a brainstorm. So that's kind
Oh,
of where it's all come to. Yeah.
wish I'd got that bit because I love Ted Lasso too. And actually, I didn't, it just, that didn't occur to me, but I think it's a fabulous name.
Thank you.
So, Flo, who are you and how did you end up doing this critical work? Tell us more.
Yeah. So, as you said, I've kind of worked across not-for-profit and for-profit, and more recently within the Big Four consulting, and very much saw kind of across teams a real issue when it came to kind of communication, especially across age groups.
Yeah.
Working with a lot of grads and then having more senior leaders that are Gen X, baby boomer age, really struggling with managing, entry level staff and people leaving university and coming in. So yeah, across the board, you've got Gen Z being disgruntled. This is under the age of 30, be feeling like they're not being understood and not being listened to. And then on the other side of it, managers finding Gen Z the most difficult to work with and the most difficult to manage. And then on top of that, I saw people leaving, hugely high staff turnover, increase in sick days, and I say sick days in inverted commas.
Yes.
And just a lot of kind of quiet quitting. And I think COVID probably had quite a lot to do with that. But across the board, I was like, there's just a communication issue that people aren't talking. And I found myself very much in the middle. I love kind of bringing people together and starting conversations that can be quite challenging and fun. But kind of complaining to me and thinking this needs to be a conversation that we're actually having together rather than having polarizing opinions. So yeah, saw a gap. Then with a kind of a cross-generational team, we kind of come together and said, how do we tackle that? And my passion is workshops and very much putting the power back to the experts who are people within the organization, to really just start this conversation and have the challenging discussion of how do I want to be managed, motivated, communicated with, led, opening that up and having that kind of flow onto how we kind of change our ways of working. I think my main push is that, or my thing is that I think we're leading in a very similar way to the way we have for the last 30, 40 years. And yet the ways of working have changed so much. And so just that kind of adapting and starting those conversations. Yeah.
Fantastic. So did you plan, this is like an opportunistic kind of thing. You saw this gap in the market and decided to go after it. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
That's a great question. A lot of things. I think I jumped around. There was probably a time where I wanted to be a chef because I just loved cooking. But there wasn't enough people interaction for my liking. But yeah, public speaking, but bringing people together, starting conversations, getting other people talking, is something I just find really, really fascinating. And I think that's in coming to No Umbrellas, I had a lot of discussions and a lot of conversations and a lot of coffees. I kind of love the Australian way of just like, we have coffees with people and we find it out.
Yeah.
And eventually I had a call actually with a really great facilitator in Sweden, and he just said, you found a gap, do it. run with it, go with it. And that was really the kind of, oh, right, good, great, okay, let's do it. And I do love it, and it's what gets me up in the morning, and it's the response we've had has just been amazing, and making
So
a real
one
change.
great big deep breath, and for some people they would look at that and say, well, you've come from the big fours and all that, so you've jumped off this, I don't know, maybe secure career track into very critical, necessary work, but completely different space. Did anyone question any of those choices along the way?
Quite. It's definitely not the norm, I think, especially when you get into the big four, where there's a really great trajectory that you can follow and a career path that you can go down. And I think stepping off that, you get quite a lot of people saying you should be really grateful that you got that job to start with and that you made it that far. But it's just exciting, and I think it's one of those feelings, and especially for me, is that my work is 5 days a week, or I mean, sometimes it feels like 6 or 7 days a week. But yes, it's enjoying it. Just feels easier, and it's just awesome to be pushing towards something that I really love doing. But I definitely got pushback. But I've had amazing mentors, and it's been really interesting. You talk to different types of people in different areas, and it could be in banking or consulting or accounting, and you find the people that are on the journey with you, and the ones that are backing you up, and the ones that pull you down and say what you're doing. You think, okay, that's lovely, that's been great, but
I love how intentional, because I often spend time with people who haven't pursued those passions, and they're 20 or 30 years into a career somewhere, and they're not quite sure where next. So I love everything about the fact that you've seen this, and because it's such critical work. I mean, if we just jump into it, we've never had so many generations working side by side. And so with that comes all sorts of assumptions. I wholeheartedly believe you around we're leading in a style that needs some adaptation. But let's unpack what's really going on. Tell me what's going on with all these generations.
So it's really interesting. I think generations has become, especially Gen Z, it's fueling a lot of media. A lot of people have got a lot of opinions about it, which is kind of a reason why I've latched onto it, because it's a great topic of conversation. Everyone has an opinion on it. Everyone takes it, they can take it quite personally. They have opinions about knowing other generations and what their experience has been and the stereotypes that revolve around that. But unlike previous, generations obviously move along. If we look at the media we've got now from Gen Z's perspective, and they're lazy and entitled and wanting a lot out of work and not wanting to work very long, is if we jump back to 2008, that's all the media was about millennials. The me generation, avocado on toast generation, wanting to buy a house, but also wanting to do, travel and explore, and, they wanting it all. So this isn't a new conversation. It's just, and if you jump back again 15 years, that's exactly what Gen X were getting. They were getting exactly the same bad rap. But the difference is that because the retirement age is now being pushed out, we've got older generations staying in the workforce longer. And therefore, instead of just being usually, we've got 3 generations in the workforce, we've actually got, there are still some silent generation in the workforce. There are baby boomers, you've got Gen X, you've got millennials, you've got Gen Z, and soon those generation Alpha will be hitting 14 and they'll be entering the work,
Amazing.
So it's a complete, with the push out of retirement ages now pushing towards 65, it's a really interesting dynamic. And if you think about the life that has been seen for a baby boomer, they have experienced work pre-computers, pre-internet. They had to do all of that. They had to then adapt to the internet, adapt to the computers, adapt to AI. And the same with Gen X. Like, they've experienced so much and they've adapted to so much.
They're exhausted.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I just think, oh my gosh, there I am. I had computers and internet in school. It's a very different world. So you've got a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different life experience that people are then comparing, and a lot of different life stages. So it's a really interesting, it's a really interesting, I think, topic to talk about. But what we really focus on is, we are focused on age, as a one defining thing that, you know, differentiates us as humans. And there's
Mm.
lots of other things that we could talk about. We could talk about life experience, we could talk about living situation, but age. And then if we break down age into generation and life stage, that's where the conversation starts. And I think the more workshops we do and the more conversations we have is that, yes, generation has a bit of an impact, but actually life stage is a more of a defining thing. I've got a mortgage, I've got young kids.
Mm.
You might be a millennial or a Gen Z. You actually share more in common than maybe a Gen Z that doesn't have kids and doesn't
Yes.
have a mortgage. And so I think that's been quite a really interesting look to, rather than generalizing people based on their generation.
So how do you start the conversation? You know, you go into a group, it's like, where do you start? What do people, what do you want people to understand?
So I think the main thing with the workshops is it's not a presentation, it's not a lecture. There is a lot of research out there, and we use that as a springboard for discussion, but it is very much led by the group of people in that room at that time. What is shared kind of shapes where our discussion goes. But what we do is we unpack those stereotypes. So we first of all acknowledge what the stereotypes are, which can be a lot of fun, but it can also churn up and be quite challenging,
Well,
which
let's hit
I
it.
can,
Let's hit a couple. Let's hit a couple of those stereotypes. So baby,
yeah,
what are they? They're the technophobes.
technophobes, yeah, don't want to, you know, adapt to technology. You hear constantly with the Gen Z saying, yeah, well, I was asked to, you know, convert a Word document to a PDF, and I was asked by a senior partner who's being paid a lot more money than me. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, yeah. And then you've got the Gen Z that are, you know, they hit 5 p.m. There might be something that still needs to be done, but I'm not paid past 5, I'm leaving. So they'll go.
Mhm.
You've got the millennials that have had to deal with quite a lot of, they finished university with a huge outlook that they were going to have the same sort of life that their parents had had, which were the baby boomers, and being able to purchase a house in their early 20s. And then the GFC hit, that wasn't possible. So suddenly they're working all these ridiculously long hours, but not getting the output that they had kind of lined up for. So there's a lot of frustration there of going, been given this life that I thought I was going to get, and it's not here. So then that financial insecurity drives a lot of tension there.
Yep.
And then you've got Gen X, which I kind of love because it's sort of just ignored in a lot of research. And we call it the sandwich generation because they're sandwiched between the millennials and the baby boomers. Latchkey kids, highly independent, parents were both working, spent a lot of time by themselves
Mm.
or, looking after themselves. Also the sandwich generation of they'd probably bring a sandwich to work as opposed to
I'm feeling seen.
really. Did you take a sandwich to work?
No, no, I didn't. No, I didn't have both parents working, but I am in that
You
generation.
are,
But
yeah.
yeah, I
But
hear
it's,
you. And look,
yeah,
I may have taken a sandwich to work. So
yeah, nothing wrong with a sandwich.
yeah.
Sandwiches are good. But yeah, I think there's all of those kind of factors that then shape those stereotypes. But I think the thing that I love is that you can share research, and you a lot of research out there kind of does bucket people in. This is what Gen Z like, and this is what millennials like, and what we found from our workshops is that I've met baby boomers that have all the traits of a Gen Z. They
Yes.
want to leave at 5 p.m. They don't want to work overtime. They actually like the fact that Gen Z have boundaries and that they, are not feeling 100%, that they will take that sick day. They don't come to work, feeling, under 80% or whatever. And
Absolutely.
then I've also met Gen Z, and I think this is really interesting, where they go, I don't want all this fluff and collaboration. I just want my manager to tell me exactly what to do, get it done, and so be it. And so I've met Gen Zs that have got very much kind of the more baby boomer tendency of what they've grown up working with in a kind of more director management style. And they
Yeah.
want that. So
Yeah.
I think that's what's really, and the communication styles as well comes up a lot, is, people kind of assume that Gen Z don't want in person, don't like that. But actually, from all of our workshops, they actually do like it. They do want to have that in person. But what they don't want is to show up to work where they're being forced to come into work and there's no one there. Because
Yeah.
then it's not in person. That's just an empty office.
Yes.
And I think that's, and the communication of baby boomers again, wanting that in person. But a lot of them are going, actually, just send me a text message. Send me a message. So it's,
Mm.
is it generation or is it just individual preference? But either way, it starts a conversation. I think that's what the generational chat does, is it starts this whole discussion on how I want to be managed, communicated with, motivated across the board, and how does other people want it.
It sounds simple, but people don't necessarily have that conversation on their own, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think before doing this, I don't think I'd really thought about it, what my motivators were, how I like to be communicated with.
Yeah.
You know, these are more kind of specific questions, but yeah. So it's a really there's a lot of it's hard to explain. There's a lot of aha moments in these workshops where you see people going like, I hadn't even thought about it that way. And I'm thinking, hey, great. But it's also just, yeah, it's a lovely feeling of going, explains it, explains it. Cool. Okay, great. Thanks.
So you talk about the power of curiosity at work, and
Mm,
it's so interesting, right? Because we talk about this old leadership model, and potentially one of the aspects of that old leadership model was the expectation as the leader that you had all the answers. So asking questions, can be seen as a pretty vulnerable thing for people to do, right? So just tell us all about this curiosity at work and unpack that kind of for us.
yeah, I think it's a really interesting one, but I think we do jump to assumptions um and judgment. And a lot of the time we see things that are happening within the workplace and then jump to a conclusion of going, oh, they're lazy, or oh, they just don't want to do the work.
Mm.
An example actually that came up recently, which is why I love the workshops, because they sometimes just go down a direction. You just think, I can't believe we're talking about coffee, but here we are. So we were talking, we had a senior leader. He gets in office at 8:30, sets up his desk, goes to the coffee shop, gets a coffee, comes back, sits down. 9 a.m. come in. The Gen Z and millennials come in. They get a little posy. They're like, we're going for coffee.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to come with us? They go off. They get a coffee at 9. By the time they come back, it's 9:30. Then they sit down at their desk and they've had their little chat and then they start working.
Yeah.
I think we very quickly jump to the assumption here that they're kind of making, like, come on, guys, you start work at 9, you're being paid at 9. And this manager was telling this to me and telling it to the group and just saying, it's just really annoying. I'm getting there early and I'm here and then. And his assumption is that they're not doing their work, they're being lazy, they're trying to shorten their day, and they're wanting paid time to pay for their coffee time. And I said to him, what's the frustration? He goes, well, because I get here at 8:30. I'm like, right, are they getting their work done? He said, yes. I said, okay. And then that was this is really interesting. What's the response to that? And I wondered if you'd kind of face that of just having.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, that was the really interesting thing about COVID. And I think it was why so many people have so much trouble with this remote working, with people working from home, because leadership is still measuring people on the hours they put in, not the outputs that they're delivering.
Completely.
And it's
Completely.
a huge difference. So until we can make that shift, and Flo, I think that is it's for me, it's the linchpin of all of this. Like just one example, I shared an email this week with our kind of newsletter audience, and it really struck a nerve for people. And the email was about this question that comes up all the time when I coach executives: how do I know I'm adding value at work? Right? And you don't know you're adding value if the work you're doing hasn't been put into context of the bigger picture, and therefore you have an anchor to how what you do really matters in the whole scheme of things. My limited perspective is we all want that. It's not about giving people a direction directly to do things, but it's like connect what they're doing to something bigger. And just that alone, that inability to kind of see value means that I see people putting in far more hours than they need to, doing all sorts of different things to kind of try and prove their value because they just haven't had a conversation or they haven't had a leader who's helped them kind of really shape it. I think this is critical, this sort of conversation.
Completely. Yeah. The seeing value, adding value is something that it comes up again and again, and especially there's recognition and recognizing that work has been done. I think if you don't do that, there is a little bit feeling of going, oh, I don't really, okay, well, I didn't get, better do some more, better, put some more hours in. But yeah, I couldn't, yeah, I think the discussion around if they're getting their work done and they're leaving at 4:30, clearly they need to be given more work.
Oh my goodness. Like, clearly they're talented
Like,
and capable.
yeah, like it's and the research on Gen Z especially hugely efficiency driven.
Yeah.
Like they've grown up with computers, being able to Google everything, AI, just getting things done. And they want to get it done and then they want to go home. So they will find the quick route. And again, as a manager, making sure it's really clear on like what they need to hit on and why they're wanting to, this needs to be done to this level because the client requires blah, blah, blah. Yep. Having that explanation is really important. But yeah, they're like they want to get the output there, but they're not prepared to do this presenteeism of sitting at your desk until 5:30, waiting. Okay, I can go. Like and it's not productive. It's unbelievably unproductive.
And I mean, there's still so many industries that operate that way. I mean, I remember years ago, I won't name and shame, but I remember one particular industry where the joke was you had to leave your suit jacket on the back of your desk chair so that people thought you were still in the office. Seriously, people.
Well, then just go home and then end of the day, cleaners are walking around. It's just suit
jackets everywhere. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, yeah, totally. I don't know how many suits people had. They'd just randomly leave jackets in the office all the time. But yeah, it's that sort of, being seen to do a certain thing that's the right thing. Yeah. So if that's disappearing out of the workforce, and I'm not sure it is, I'd love our listeners' perspective on whether it is. I want to ask you a question. When I think about our audience, right?
Yeah.
Senior professional females, most of them. So a lot of them C-suite, CEOs, or on those paths. And so a lot of them are in leadership roles and they'll be listening to our conversation undoubtedly from a leadership perspective, right? Insights into how can I, all of that, which is amazing. But I'm fascinated from the other lens, which is the people being led by different generational leaders. Because, I've coached people who've been led by baby boomers, led by Gen X, are now being led by millennials, and Gen Z, stepping up to the plate as well. What impact or influence, or what's your advice about what you should do when you're being led by someone who doesn't necessarily understand all of this or take the time to understand this?
This is more of a managing up perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's your advice to people in those situations?
So I think it still comes down to that curiosity. And I also have a lot of conversations with university students that will soon be graduating and entering grad roles, first roles, is being curious towards your senior leaders, who for the majority will be older than you. But I think it's really asking curious questions, wanting to learn. So a lot of Gen X and baby boomers have a huge amount of experience. They've been in the workforce for a decent amount of time. They have a lot to share, a lot of wisdom to impart, but you have to give them that opportunity. And it's by asking curious questions. I'm doing it this way. Is that the right way? I'd love your advice. I think asking for advice is a really powerful thing when it comes to working with leaders. I had this situation. I don't know if I dealt with it in the right way. What would your advice be?
So if I flip it from the grad that you're talking to the Gen X female,
yeah,
who's now being led by a Gen Z leader who who doesn't necessarily value the Gen X skills or the baby boomer skills. They've almost written those off to a certain degree. Like what do people, I get the curiosity kind of angle, but it's like, what do you do in that situation? So it's managing up, but it's managing generations several beyond yours.
Several down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think this is where it comes from both sides. And I think this is probably why No Umbrella started, is because one, these conversations are being had in silos, that a lot of the frustration or or we don't want to discuss it because it makes us feel uncomfortable and it's challenging. And I think that's where my angle of discussion is being able to talk to a Gen Z leader and explain to them about, if you're wanting to unlock the collective intelligence of your team, you're wanting to unlock the power of your team, you need to see the benefits that you're going to be getting from all different ages within your workforce, and that they need to be more open. And I think, there is also a tendency, and I'm sort of, this is a side note, but I also have to say this: there are just bad managers out there, and I think it just needs to be acknowledged is that there are bad employees, there are bad managers, and ultimately that doesn't matter how old you are. That's just the way it is.
I think people are given leadership is such a privilege, right? And such a responsibility. And I
Yeah.
think people are given that very lightly. It's like the next step on the ladder, take that. And people learn on the job. And I think it's very challenging to learn in today's environment with so many generations together. It's so easy
Yeah.
to make
And,
mistakes, right?
and just on saying that they're bad, it's so hard managing people. It's a really tricky job. Like, people are hard, and
Yeah.
I think you're right. They're learning on the job. They're trying to figure it out. That can be really difficult. But I think understanding your people and understanding how they work and opening up that discussion, not just saying, what are you good at? What can I help you with? Because the response is usually always, I'm really, good at time management, or, some broad statement.
Yeah.
But I do think in staying relevant, which I think we all want, no matter what age we are, wanting to be relevant and valued and a part of it, is that if you're interested in other people, they'll be interested in you. Like, I believe that is that asking those questions and saying, like, what can I be doing better?
Yeah.
Is that a lot of senior leaders, and I understand completely where it's coming from. It's like, I've been here a really long time. Why am I now having to prove myself to someone that's 6 years out of university? I get it. Like, yeah. But I think, yeah.
So if, one of the things that we see, if you just look broadly at what's going on with everyone, everywhere we are getting the opportunity to have everything personalized for us, right? It's like, big brands are starting to understand that they've got to personalize experiences for people and all of these sorts of things. So, I mean, is that what we are talking about with leadership? Like, because we talk about there's an old style of leadership. What does the new style look like, Flo? Like, if you describe that new style of leadership that can cope with all these different generations, what does that look like?
I think it's depends on context and people would be my main thing. And I don't know why my voice is now going. It's like,
Have some water. It's okay.
yeah, context and people. I think leadership is something that is adaptive and should be adapting to different people and different times of what you're dealing with. If you're in the middle of a major project, I think as a leader, it's really important that you stand up and take control and kind of own that decision making, because people are looking up to you going, we're a bit lost, deer in the headlights feeling. But then I also think there's another side of it, which is really understanding how to get the best out of the people you're working with and that human connection, and looking at not, I'm just going to stay the way I am and everyone needs to adapt to me, but more, hang on, maybe I could adapt to get the most out of my people. And I've had this working with creative teams where I've sat down at the beginning of projects and said, right, how do we want this to be managed? And they've looked at me going, no, you're the manager. Why are you, you're meant to be managing it. So, okay, I'm going to manage it on a spreadsheet. Don't you dare. Right, okay. Don't want a spreadsheet. Good. Well, how are we going to do it? And we had this kind of collaborative chat around how to manage the project.
Yeah.
And suddenly it was just easier. But that was something we did at the start.
Yeah.
Middle of the thing, I had to stand up and go, I'm the one that has to talk to the client. I need this done now. I'm not here to negotiate. This is the time. So I think that's something that I've been taught and experienced with project work, but I think it works across the board, is that knowing when it's important to build connection with people. And I really do believe that if you care about people and you see their value, they will go above and beyond, because you need them there. And I think acknowledging the fact that you can't do everything, the best leaders I've worked with have very clearly acknowledged, going, I'm in this role, but you are the expert. I need you to get this done. I can't do your job. That's a real power, I think. Yeah.
A huge shift for people as well, because, so many people, that shift to leader is really daunting for a lot of people, because people have grown up their whole careers as maybe individual contributors, getting feedback and praise for doing their job well. As a leader, that disappears, right? Like, you're not the one in the limelight anymore. Your team are the ones in the limelight, and people find that transition really difficult too. So, it's just playing into what you're talking about, not necessarily having all the answers all the time. Can you tell me, you mentioned to me that the golden rule is wrong. What is the golden rule and why is it wrong?
Yes. So the golden rule is a good one, and it's something I was thinking about around treating others the way you want to be treated, which I think has a lovely sentiment to it. And I'm not pulling it apart, and it's a great first step. But I believe that there's a second step, which is treating others the way you want to be treated. I'm sorry, treating others the way they want to be treated.
So the golden rule is treating others the
way you want to be treated.
Yeah.
Which I think we do quite a lot in leadership, is that, that's what I would have wanted, so that's what I'm going to do. Or that's what I would have liked, that's what I will do.
Yes.
Or I was pushed really hard when I was a grad, that's what I'm going to do.
Yes.
But actually understanding your audience and understanding your people and treating them the way that they want to be treated, and kind of adapting to say, okay, they don't want to meet in person. That's fine. We're going to do a telephone call. They can go for a walk while we're chatting. I can give them all their feedback over the phone. No, okay, they want an email. They want to be able to read it, really have it reviewed. They don't like it when I just put a session in saying, feedback in 2 hours. They're actually going into panic mode, thinking it's really, really bad, even though it was positive feedback.
Yeah.
But because there was no context, they stressed. But, I wouldn't have stressed. And similar to what I mentioned before around, at the start of a project, having that collaboration, like, that's something I really love and want to be involved. And I also think I really like it when we've got to get from, A to B. However you get to B, go for it. Like, I'm trusting you as a group to get to B, come up with some ideas, share them back to me. As working with a leader that's done that, really exciting. I'm like, yeah, great, got lots of options. But I've got friends that just go, no, tell us how to get from A to B and I will do it. Don't. So it's, as a leader, you're going to get the best outcome knowing those things going into it. So I think and it comes up again and again in workshops, going like, oh yeah, that's so true. Like, I just need to realize that they're not going to change.
So Flo,
or I'm not going to change. So we need to both be changing and adapting a little bit.
what do you think of mandates for people to be in the office, and how's that being received across the generations?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one. And I think it comes back to my previous point just on, I think it is a complete waste of time to be forcing people to come into an office that might be empty, or like none of their team is present, because then they, in my opinion, they might as well just be at home. I really think, and my workshops are in person. Most of our workshops are in person because I think that's how you can really get a lot out of your team. And a lot of what we do at work benefits from that in-person interaction. But downtime work, where you just need to plow on, I believe you could be anywhere doing that. I think when it comes to the mandates, I think it is really important, because getting everyone in at the same time and being there. And I think I was working within Big Four, and it was like, you can come in any days you want, but you need to be in at least 1 day a week. And I'd be in the office by myself, just on a floor, completely empty.
Yes.
That's not a vibe. That's, I'm not working better because I'm in some nice air conditioned, high-rise building. Like, it doesn't. So I think to some level that, and I've had some really fun chats just with people saying like, no, I think we're always going to complain about going into the office. Like, it's part of work. Like, we complain about work. Like, I do believe that is that there is just some level of like, oh, I've got to go into the office tomorrow. But it's like, yeah, you're being paid. It's a job. Like, you need to, I don't know.
Someone said to me once, and I'm sure it's in one of these interviews, and I can't remember who it is, but they made some sort of comment around that's why it's called work. Um, but
Yeah.
but I don't know, I have a bit of a maybe idealist kind of vision a
Oh,
little
tell
bit.
me. Tell me.
It's kind of
Yes,
why I love I love what you're doing. It's like we spend so much of our lives at work that it's got to be more than just somewhere I turn up 9 to 5
for
and
sure.
so it's that, I mean, that's why I invest time doing what I'm doing, trying to help leaders navigate all of these different
Yeah.
situations and become better leaders, because I just think there's such an opportunity for us to create workplaces where people really want to be, not be physically present every day, but really want to be part of
Yeah.
what's going on and all of that sort of stuff. So I don't know, I want it to be so much more for people. And it's a
And
huge responsibility to place on leaders, but I think they can do it.
but I also think if you're going to bring people in person and you're wanting the team to be in it, then make meetings more collaborative, make meetings more fun, hear from everybody.
Yeah.
Because going into work and saying, right, we've got a meeting, and then being lectured for 2 hours is it's quite tiring, and you think, I could just be at home watching this on Zoom. I think let's it has to be different. It has to be collaborative, interactive. Have those meetings and plan for them to be an opportunity to hear from other people, because that's the time to do it. And I think that's where, yeah, sure, the pizza parties and the snacks and bar tabs or whatever can help, but actually, going into a meeting and half your team being at home and then they're on Zoom and they're on the big screen and you're sitting in the meeting, it's not a vibe. It's
Yeah,
not,
exactly. I think
it's not ideal.
it's so much simpler than that. It's like throwing all of those, and we've all done it, right? Thrown all those different perks and things like that. But people see through them. They see through all of that. So I think it can be a lot simpler. But I think what I'm hearing you say as well is that be intentional about your leadership. Like, create the
Yeah.
space and time to think about how you're leading people, as well. Flo, there's another thing that you and I touched on this because it was sort of in the headlines here in Australia when you and I first
Yeah.
met, the whole conscious unbossing term. And
Yes.
it's not new. It's actually been around for a while, but for some reason our media have picked up on it recently. And it's the whole younger generation opting not to step into leadership roles. Have you seen it, heard about it? What do you think about it?
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. Just as a concept. And I think if you look at where we are now with work, and really people pushing for more of a I work to live rather than living to work, is that these opportunities to progress and reach higher and higher levels are seen as, sure, I'm most likely to get a pay rise, but I'm going to be expected to work a lot longer hours. It's going to be really high stress. I've got a lot more responsibility. um is it worth it? Am I going to have less holidays? I'm going to have less time with my family? Am I going to have less time to be able to go for a walk before work? It's I think there has been the role models of it, of looking up, and a lot of people find themselves looking at their manager's manager and going, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
That's not something that I aspire to. But
Mm.
I also think a conversation that we actually have quite a lot is around, you get people that become specialists in their role. They're really, really good at what they're doing. And then the promotion is to then manage people, which I've never really fully understood. It's like, you're great at this, you're amazing at this, you're a top level accountant. Now we're going to get you to manage people. well, no, I really like the accounting. I'm really good at the accounting. Pay me more to do this. Do not put me in charge of people, possibly. And so I think in terms of the conscious unbossing, I think there needs to be a different way where it's, you know, the people leadership in some ways is super important, but we should also be trying to go, okay, we've got all this talent, we don't want to lose you. How do we retain you without, it's by still making it desirable work that you actually want to be doing?
Fascinating.
What are
So
your thoughts?
don't push
Yeah,
people. Don't push people. The only way you can get a promotion or more money effectively is to take a leadership track, right? Versus saying to
yeah,
people, there's another way of doing this and
yeah.
you don't have to
Which
add
is,
something you might not love.
yeah. And I think there is, that's kind of specialist or wanting to just, and I've got friends that have just said, I have been in this job for a couple of years. I have absolutely nailed the processes on it.
Mm,
And I love my job. I've got great clients and I've just worked it out that I can manage it. And yeah, end of financial year, it gets a bit hectic, it gets a bit crazy, but I can go on holiday and I can relax and I can turn off on the weekend. And
mm,
I'm being pushed to jump up to the COO role. They're looking, and I think I look at female role models especially and go like, could I do that? And they seem stressed and, life is hard and, kids, house, all of that seems to still land majority on women.
mm.
God, that doesn't look fun. That doesn't look enjoyable. And yet I want to be, we want to be that boss and we want to
Yeah.
push through the fact that it's majority men. Yeah.
I love that you're saying that. Like, I know I'm very privileged to get a chance to help a lot of leaders unlock female talent in their organizations. And so that looking up and seeing something that I'm questioning, do I want to do all those things, is a massive thing that holds people back. And so what I love and what I'm ongoing kind of challenged to do is I think there's two things. Number one, with a lot of senior leaders and CEOs, I say, what do people see when they look up? So
Great
really
question.
process.
Yeah.
People are seeing when they're looking at you because it matters, right? Like if you're wondering why there's no one on your succession plan or no one you want on your succession plan, go and have a look at that and ask that question. But then the second thing really strongly is we don't have to lead the way that we've seen others lead before. And so, I interviewed Sally Bruce years ago, and I would put myself in this category too when I was a CEO. I left the office loudly every night. I left it in time to go and have dinner with my kids. It mattered to me that people saw that you can deliver the outcomes of a role, not by being one of those people that leave your suit jackets on the seat at night.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean there's times, peaks and troughs in work where you have to put more in. But yeah, I'm obsessed with female leaders understanding that you can find a way to do this. Don't look at the shitty role models that have been there and then we assume I don't want to do it, it's not fun. It's amazing. If you love leading people and you've got all these
Yeah.
things you're talking about, curiosity and passion and interest, it's the most rewarding thing ever. So come on, leaders listening to this audience, get
Yeah.
in, get in there.
Yeah, but I think it is it's challenging it. You've got to, and I think similar to everything we're doing in our workshop, challenging the way that we're currently working, questioning it. Is this, is this good? Or, can we do it a bit differently? Or what if we do it this way? I think being open to those ideas and, not all of them are good and not all of them are great, but you have to let them go, interesting. Yeah. Okay. Any other things that we could be doing? But I love that you left loudly. And I think that leaders that I've talked to is they are being looked at all day,
All day.
being watched and observed. And what they do shapes how everyone else feels. So if they are working, if they are getting there at 6 a.m. and they're not leaving until 9 p.m., everyone else feels like, well, that's what I should be probably doing if I'm wanting to be seen as a
And they're not
if,
taking care
well,
of themselves. It's not sustainable
yeah,
for them
no,
or for everyone else.
no. And who was I was talking to someone recently and they had on their email chain just underneath their signature if they were replying to emails after 5 p.m. Just because I'm working after 5 p.m., I have no expectation for you, you know. I took a break at lunchtime.
Yeah.
But again, we can do that. That's an option. It's an interesting. There aren't rules that we're having to be, oh, we have to do it this way. And I think that's what's all of these conversations. It's just like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, probably good.
I'm excited about when we don't even have to explain that. It's like if you
For
get
sure.
if you get an email from me at 2 a.m., it's not because I'm working 24 hours a day. It's because I happen to wake up and think about something. I don't expect you to respond. You'll get it
No,
done. I trust
no,
you, and you're
yeah,
going to deliver the outcomes you need
yeah,
to.
yeah.
But
And again, on that, like it's not hours, it's output. It's just
output,
no.
it's output. So
Yeah. And I think that's the same with the kind of the 4 days a week discussions that have come up.
yes,
They've done studies. We can do jobs in 4 days.
yeah,
If people get a 3 day weekend, they will increase their productivity. Go, come on, let's grind it out. Let's get it done.
yeah.
Yeah, there are some comms that still probably need to go out, and it depends on jobs, and it's totally different for
Favorite
hospitals
question
and.
you love to ask? Like, is there one that you drop into a workshop that is a
Oh,
favorite?
that's a
Hard to
very
pick
good
one.
question. I think I think my favorite question, and it's not even a question, it's more of a response, but there are a lot of discussions that happen within workshops. And I think we're sort of ingrained to look at whoever's running the session for the answers. So a
Yeah.
lot of the time we'll be having a discussion, and then they go, so what do you think, Flo? Flo, yeah, what are your thoughts on that? And my favorite thing is responding, going like, nope, what does the room think? And we just put it out there and we sit in silence. And it can be for 5 minutes.
I love that. Another thing I shared recently was that whole thing about like, growth is quiet. When people are in their comfort zones, they're chatting. And the minute they don't know the answers and they're quiet, you're right. People look to someone
Yeah.
else or they fill the silence and they move past those uncomfortable moments. So I love that you're
Yeah.
creating
And
the,
I think I say at the beginning of every workshop, I'm like, you're the experts. Yes, got research, I've got stories, but you're the experts. You do this job, I don't. You're in the team, I'm not. What you have is gold. And all I'm doing is facilitating a conversation where we can get to those outcomes. And that's what's so exciting. And I think from my previous experience of, working in workshops and being in workshops, just everyone has something to say. They're just waiting for the opportunity. And I think a lot of the time we have these sessions where they can be quite facilitator dominated or leadership dominated, I think I've said this to you already, but like I do run workshops where I remove C-suite. I'm like, sorry, you can't come. I just, and it's not personal. It's not to do with, it's just, as Adam Grant says, highest paid person in the room, everyone just looks to them. We call them hippos because everyone goes, oh, just whatever they're going to say, we'll just say the same thing. But if you remove it, it allows more people to kind of share and have a discussion. So, but yeah, I think that's why I just love it. It's just really, yeah, satisfying.
I love the term hippo. I haven't heard that
Yeah,
before.
yeah, they don't take it hugely well. I've had a couple of things be like, no, you can't come, you're a hippo. No, no, not like that. Just, oh gosh, oh no. Because you're highest paid person, you might not be the highest paid. Yeah. And then I dig myself a hole, Melissa, and then we're in trouble.
So, Flo, the
Oh.
final question I ask everybody, and I'd just so love to hear your answer on this.
Mm.
What does brave feminine leadership mean from your perspective? And do you think it needs to change?
This has sparked so much discussion. I've been talking to a lot of people about this, and so yes, thank you for that. And thanks for naming the podcast because it's sparked just great conversation, which I love. I think for me, it's my view of feminine leadership is very much leading with curiosity, care, and clarity. And I think it is, as we have actually talked about, which is so lovely, but it's around seeing people's value so that they can then add value. So seeing that. I think the brave part for me is about creating brave spaces. And I hope this is something that we kind of create within our workshops, but where you can really trust in others' abilities and create a space where they can share, hear from them, and can actually put forward ideas that might be a bit challenging. And I think sometimes with safe spaces, they can be quite quiet not quiet, but almost silent in the fact that they don't want to share anything.
Mm.
And I think actually it doesn't maybe promote sometimes a challenging discussion, as opposed to a brave space where that does actually kind of create a challenging discussion, but you're being supported. I think most businesses now, they still do default very much to almost 100% traditional masculine leadership traits,
Mm.
competition, controlling, decisive. And I think that the reason it's brave is that the feminine leadership very much challenges this
Mm.
hugely, and it really encourages diverse perspectives and open communication, and also the kind of well-being of teams. But it's led to some really interesting discussion. I thought I'd just quickly share, because I was talking about this with my brother, who is a professional rugby player. So we were chatting about different leadership and how does it work, and he was actually talking about being in the middle of a rugby game, going into the changing rooms, and coach comes in. Okay, so what do we think we're doing well? Like, how's everyone feeling? What are we doing? And I was talking to my brother, and he just said that wasn't the time. That wasn't the time for collaboration. That was the time for decisiveness. That was the time for, I need you to take control. I need you to tell me what we're doing.
Yeah, okay.
And come Monday morning, the reflection piece was huge. Having that open dialogue, having okay, you've watched it back. What do we think? What can we be adapting? And I was thinking about it in the same way as consulting projects, is that at the start, before the project, absolutely, let's have a discussion, let's collaborate on how we want it to work. But a week before delivery, they're looking to me to be decisive, make a decision. You need to step up and be authoritative with it. And I think that's where, does it need to change? I think feminine leadership traits absolutely need to be respected and embedded as a legitimate and strategic leadership style, 100%. And not like the soft alternative. Like, it's seen as a, soft alternative. Doesn't, no, there is a time and place for both traits.
Yeah.
But it really needs to be seen as like, they both need to be there as part of the core part of how we lead well. But yeah, I think adapting to context and people. So there is great traits in the modern masculine traits. There is a time and a place for them, but that is not 100% the way that we should be leading. And I think the adapting is, yeah. What do you think?
Oh, I love that. I love first of all, your definition of a brave space versus a safe space. I love, like, that's going to stay with me for sure.
Yeah,
Then the simple, um, the simple feminine leadership, seeing value, um, so people can add value, um,
yeah,
is incredible. I love that. I love your perspective and view on that. Thank you so much for being part of our conversation. We'll pop into the show notes where people can track you down, to
perfect.
have these incredible conversations. But it's been such a privilege to spend time with you today.
Oh, it's been the best. Melissa, thank you so much. It's been such an interesting conversation, and what you're doing is just brilliant. So thank you.